Right, so my name's Dominic, one of the directors here at Bonham & Brook. Excited to be with you today. So my role is CCO, so really my job entails communicating the R&D tax credit scheme far and wide across the country and finding those clients that are suitable and selling the services of more intelligent people than myself, such as Malcolm Henderson here. Malcolm.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Yeah, my name's Malcolm. I'm Head of Compliance and Tax at Bonham & Brook. I've had considerable experience at HMRC as an R&D unit inspector, and then 7 years in private practice, making sure that Bonham & Brook submit robust but compliant R&D tax relief claims.
How many years is that in R&D tax then, Malcolm?
16 years.
16 years, and he doesn't look a day over 32. So obviously within that amount of experience comes a lot of insights into the sector, good practice, bad practice, and what accountants should look out for. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about, often we're introduced to clients, and obviously they have a tremendously close relationship with the accountants that support them, and we then look forward to also engaging in that relationship in a tripart engagement of sorts. So I was hoping you could provide a little bit of your experience on what should accountants look out for when trying to find a good R&D provider to support their clients.
Well, I'd be looking for several things. First off, Bonham & Brook's technical consultants, because they can bring out the R&D in the various sectors, engineering, construction, agriculture, etc. I'd also be looking for them to have tax specialists, chartered accountants, and ex-HMRC R&D inspectors like myself, so that we can give reasonable assurance to their clients and a good service. Excellent,
because obviously I think we're all conscious, and particularly at this business, but everyone in the industry should be. HMRC are obviously implementing legislative changes. We know that inquiry rates are on the up, and it's becoming more important than ever to choose a provider that is essentially going to have your client's best interests at heart and not their own. So in terms of if you were going to provide a few pieces of advice on what makes a high quality and high caliber claim that is going to be robust and really not invite inquiry for HMRC, what would be the top few things that you'd look out for?
Well, first off, already quite a few times at Bonham & Brook I've sat in with technical consultants and we've discovered there probably isn't any R&D. So we've told the client that, but just in case they might be doing something in the future, we've told them to keep records. We've advised them to keep records of literally, as competent professionals in their field or sector, when they literally start scratching their head because they can't readily resolve an issue or a problem.
So essentially, if you're speaking to another provider and they are assuring you that everything you do is R&D, there should be alarm bells ringing. Because ultimately our role is not only to find R&D but disqualify the projects that aren't there. And often eagerness to include everything can indicate ignorance to what the actual intricacies of the scheme may be. So yeah, I think that's an important point. Thank you, Malcolm. Excellent. So one more question for you, Malcolm. Often, obviously this is an increasingly busy market with R&D providers. If we were going to provide a bit of advice to our clients and their associated professional partners, including accountancies, of how to pick out a good one, what would be some questions that would be indicative of the necessary due diligence to indicate someone that was carrying out this with a good degree of professionalism that you feel comfortable recommending to? Could you give us a few areas that you might look at yourself?
Yeah, for instance, I mean, obviously we're doing the R&D claim, so we want to make sure that we're doing a compliant and robust R&D claim. So when I review the company's accounts, I'll just check to see if there's any other appointments that might impact on some of the costs that we can claim. I'll check to see if they are an SME. I'll check to see if there are any grants, and I'll also check to see if those appointments could impact on any costs in our claim.
Perfect. Obviously that probably comes with many years of sitting on the other side of the desk.
Yeah, in my HMRC days, last 9 years to March 15, basically I sat alongside a trainee inspector team, various stages of training. They needed inquiry cases, so on top of risking the R&D claims that I'd received, I'd also see if there are any other aspects in the accounts that the business learning manager would be interested in passing on to their 20 or so trainee inspectors to inquire into.
Excellent. And we know from essentially having a look at the recent audit records of HMRC's departments, that this is a team that's rapidly expanding. So whilst Malcolm's training of HMRC has unfortunately come to an end, it's very fortunate for us that he's now training our staff. So in that regard, obviously HMRC legislation is never static, it changes, and it's important that the clients are made aware of this. There's been quite a few interesting tribunals in the last few years.
Yeah, in some ways HMRC have changed their minds about many things. They'll say they haven't, but it's clear that they have. The two most recent ones that will probably impact it in most terms are Haley Engineering, which HMRC won. I believe it's going on appeal to the upper tribunal, so that would be interesting. Haley Engineering case impacted quite strictly or severely, if you like, on a number of R&D claims.
Yeah. So
a referral to the upper tribunal could be useful, could be much more positive for outside R&D providers. Yeah. And the other one was basically Quinn London v HMRC, which HMRC lost. Most importantly, it was all about subsidised R&D because an R&D claimant is paid for work. Is that subsidised? I mean, we all thought that was pretty daft, and I think there's one or two inspectors that are quoted as saying that was a pretty daft outlook by HMRC. And it was borne out by the judge's comments. She said basically that HMRC's position was wildly out of kilter with the legislation.
A wonderful succinct.
For layman's terms, don't be daft, basically. But,
okay, excellent.
So that was a great one, and that sort of sat there. It's very useful for R&D providers.
It underlines the importance to be aware of the upcoming developments, because this is something that you have to stay abreast of in order to be providing the most accurate advice. And when it comes to not only dealing with what is the current state of play, there are many changes that are coming down the pipeline, which are going to have big impacts for our clients. Perhaps if you'd like to talk about some of Rishi Sunak's latest activities.
Okay, well obviously the PAYE cap is here now. That was introduced to tackle a big fraud case a year or two ago. And obviously we've got other issues in the pipeline to be resolved by Rishi Sunak's recent statement. Overseas subcontractors, that was one. Basically, it kicked off with no overseas R&D subcontractor costs, but they rode back quite a bit already because of, consultation, etc. There were some minor rowbacks, but now there's probably a more major one in terms of the fact that, well, the UK hasn't got all the scientific or technical excellence that's needed. So there might be, a skill shortage caveat sometime in the future.
Okay, wonderful. I think for now that's probably been incredibly informative. I hope it has for the people watching at home as well. And we would warmly encourage you to reach out. If there are accountants out there with more questions about Bonham & Brook, about compliance, myself and Malcolm would love to have this conversation in person. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we look forward to working with you soon.